My name is Theo Mercer, and I'm standing in the humid Charleston air for the first time in 12 years, watching my father's funeral from the back of a crowd that pretends I don't exist. The flight from Portland felt like traveling backward, through time. Each mile closer to South Carolina peeled away another layer of the life I'd built for myself. The quiet workshop where I crafted custom furniture, the small apartment overlooking the Columbia River, the peace I'd found in routine and solitude. Now, surrounded by the familiar weight of Spanish moss and the suffocating perfume of magnolia blossoms, I remember why I left. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Charleston hasn't changed much. The same cobblestone streets, the same grand mansions with their wraparound porches and iron gates that whisper of old money and older secrets. But I have changed. At 31, I carry myself differently than the angry 19-year-old who packed a single bag and disappeared into the night, after telling my father exactly what I thought of him and his legacy. The funeral is held at St. Michael's Episcopal Church, where 4 generations of Mercers have been baptized, married, and buried. I slip in through the side door just as the service begins, finding a seat in the back pew beside strangers who smell like expensive cologne and inherited guilt. The church is packed, Charleston society turning out in force to honor Gregory Mercer, the man who built Mercer Woodworks into a $2 million empire. At the front of the church, my brother Dylan stands tall and confident beside the mahogany casket. He's 34 now, his blonde hair perfectly styled, his charcoal suit tailored to perfection. He looks every inch the successful businessman, the golden son who stayed behind to learn the family trade. When he steps up to deliver the eulogy, his voice carries across the sanctuary with practiced authority. My father built more than a business, Dylan says, his hands gripping the podium. He built a legacy. Mercer Woodworks isn't just about furniture. It's about craftsmanship, tradition, and the values that made this family what it is today. I watch him speak, noting the slight tremor in his voice that others might miss. Dylan always was good at performing, at saying what people wanted to hear, but I remember the boy who used to sneak into my room at night, afraid of thunderstorms and our father's harsh words. The congregation murmurs approval as Dylan promises to carry on the family tradition. He doesn't mention me, neither does anyone else. It's as if I ceased to exist the moment I walked out of this suffocating city. After the service, I linger in the churchyard, watching the procession of black cars wind their way toward Magnolia Cemetery. A few familiar faces glance my way, old family friends, distant relatives, but no one approaches. I am a ghost at my own father's funeral. Theo. I turn to find Evelyn Carver, the family lawyer, approaching with careful steps. She's aged gracefully, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun, her dark suit professional but kind. "Ms. Carver," I nod, unsure what else to say. "I'm glad you came," she says softly. "Your father, well, he was a complicated man, but he was still your father." I don't respond. The truth is, I'm not here for him. I'm here because something in me needed to witness this ending, to see if I could feel anything other than the hollow ache that's lived in my chest for 12 years. "There's a will reading tomorrow," Evelyn continues. 2 o'clock at my office. You should be there." "I don't expect anything," I say. Her smile is sad but knowing. Sometimes we get what we need, not what we expect. As she walks away, I find myself alone among the headstones, breathing in the heavy Charleston air and wondering what tomorrow will bring. The law office of Carver & Associates sits in a restored antebellum mansion on Meeting Street, its polished mahogany and brass fixtures designed to project both tradition and authority. I arrive 5 minutes early, my hands steady despite the knot in my stomach. The receptionist, a young woman with kind eyes, directs me to the conference room where Dylan is already seated at the head of a long table, scrolling through his phone with practiced indifference. He looks up when I enter, his expression shifting from surprise to something colder. "Didn't think you'd actually show." "Here I am," I say, taking a seat across from him. The distance between us feels like more than just polished wood. It's 12 years of silence, of choosing different paths, of becoming strangers who happen to share the same blood. Evelyn enters carrying a leather portfolio, her expression professionally neutral. Behind her follows a younger man I don't recognize, probably an associate, and Mrs. Henderson, our father's longtime accountant. The room suddenly feels smaller, more formal. "Thank you all for coming," Evelyn begins, settling into her chair. "We're here to read the last will and testament of Gregory Samuel Mercer, dated March 15th of this year." She opens the portfolio with practiced efficiency. The pages rustle in the silence as she clears her throat and begins to read the formal language of death and distribution. Most of it is predictable. Charitable donations to the Charleston Historical Society, a trust for the church, small bequests to longtime employees. Then she reaches the heart of it. "To my son Dylan James Mercer, I leave my entire interest in Mercer Woodworks, including all assets, inventory, equipment, and goodwill associated with the business, confident that he will continue the family tradition with honor and integrity." Dylan's smile is subtle but unmistakable. He leans back in his chair, the posture of a man who's just had his birthright confirmed. I feel nothing. No surprise, no disappointment, no anger. This is exactly what I expected. "To my son Theodore Allen Mercer," Evelyn continues, "I leave my personal tools and workbench, hoping that he might remember the craft that once brought us together." The tools. I almost laugh. Even in death, my father found a way to diminish me. Dylan's smile widens. "That concludes the will," Evelyn says. But she doesn't close the portfolio. Instead, she reaches for a separate document. However, there is one additional matter. The room shifts. Dylan's confidence wavers slightly. "Before her death 3 years ago, Susan Mercer, your mother, established a separate trust. This trust was never disclosed to Gregory, as was her legal right. The trust pertains to her original investment in Mercer Woodworks when the company was incorporated in 1987. My heart stops. Our mother had been silent about business matters, deferring to our father in all things. Or so I thought. Susan Mercer originally contributed 51% of the startup capital for Mercer Woodworks, retaining majority ownership while allowing Gregory to serve as managing partner. Upon her death, this majority stake was transferred to Theodore Mercer. The words hang in the air like smoke. Dylan's face drains of color. "That's impossible," he whispers. Evelyn slides a thick folder across the table to me. "The documentation is all here, Theo. Corporate filings, bank records, your mother's original investment agreement. She left you controlling interest in the company." I stare at the folder, my hands trembling slightly. Dylan shoots to his feet, his chair scraping against the hardwood. "This is bullshit," he shouts. "Dad would never. He promised me." "Your father wasn't aware of the trust," Evelyn says calmly. "Susan kept it confidential, as was her right. She instructed me to reveal it only after Gregory's death." Dylan's face contorts with rage and disbelief. "You planned this! You manipulated a dying woman!" "I did nothing but honor your mother's wishes," I say quietly, finding my voice. "I had no idea. But even as I say it, I remember something. A conversation with my mother just before I left Charleston, her pressing a sealed envelope into my hands. 'Keep this safe,' she'd said. 'You'll understand someday.' I'd thrown it away unopened, too angry to care about family secrets." Dylan storms toward the door, then turns back, his finger pointed at me like a weapon. "You think you can just waltz back in here and take what's mine? I've built this company. I've earned it. You ran away like a coward." The door slams behind him, leaving the rest of us in stunned silence. I look down at the folder in my hands, holding the keys to a kingdom I never wanted. But sometimes, I'm learning, we inherit more than we bargain for. The phone calls start before I even reach my hotel. Dylan's voice crackles through the speaker, equal parts fury and desperation. "You have 24 hours to sign those shares back to me, or I'm calling an emergency board meeting. I'll freeze you out of every decision, every contract, every goddamn paperclip purchase." I hang up without responding. The second call comes an hour later, then a third. By evening, I've stopped answering. The next morning, I drive to the Mercer Woodworks facility for the first time since I was 17. The building sits on a 5-acre lot in North Charleston, a sprawling warehouse with attached offices that my father expanded 3 times over the years. The parking lot is full of pickup trucks and sedans, employees arriving for another day of crafting the custom furniture that built our family's reputation. I park near the back and walk through the main entrance, past the reception desk where a young woman looks up with polite confusion. "Can I help you?" "I'm Theo Mercer," I say simply. Her eyes widen. The name still carries weight here, even after all these years. The workshop floor opens before me like a cathedral of wood and steel. The smell hits me first: sawdust, varnish, and the particular scent of cedar that always clung to my father's clothes. Workbenches stretch across the space, each one a small kingdom of tools and half-finished projects. The sound of sanders and routers creates a familiar symphony. Well, I'll be damned. I turn to find Jonas Whitman approaching, his weathered face breaking into a genuine smile. He's in his 60s now, his gray beard neatly trimmed, his hands still bearing the calluses of 4 decades in woodworking. He was my father's first employee, the master craftsman who taught me to read wood grain like a book. "Jonas," I extend my hand, but he pulls me into a bear hug instead. "Heard you were back in town," he says, stepping back to study me. "Heard about the will reading too. Whole place has been buzzing since yesterday." "Dylan called a meeting?" Jonas nods toward the conference room where I can see Dylan pacing behind glass walls, gesturing animatedly at a small group of department heads. "Been at it since 7 this morning, talking about restructuring, new protocols, establishing clear chains of command." He lowers his voice. What he's really doing is trying to convince everyone that piece of paper doesn't mean what it says. Through the window, I watch my brother point at charts and spreadsheets, his movements sharp with barely contained panic. The men around the table look uncomfortable, shifting in their seats like they'd rather be anywhere else. "The thing is," Jonas continues, "most of us remember your mama. Remember how she used to come around when you were little, asking questions about the business, taking notes? She wasn't just playing hostess, she was learning." He pauses, studying my face. "She was protecting something, or someone." A commotion erupts from the conference room. Dylan's voice rises above the glass barrier and I catch fragments. Family loyalty and outside interference. The department heads exchange glances, clearly eager to escape. "You planning to stick around this time?" Jonas asks. I look out across the workshop floor at the craftsmen bent over their projects, creating something lasting with their hands. This place shaped me before I knew what I wanted to become. Maybe it's time to remember why I fell in love with wood in the first place. "I'm not sure yet," I admit. "But I'm not running away either." Jonas nods approvingly. "That's a start." I spend the next 3 days quietly observing, not as an owner, not as Dylan's brother, but as someone learning a business I thought I knew. What I discover makes my stomach turn. The craftsmanship that once defined Mercer Woodworks has been slowly eroded. Where master woodworkers once shaped each piece by hand, I find assembly line efficiency and cost-cutting shortcuts. The showroom displays beautiful samples, but the actual production models use cheaper materials, faster methods, lower-paid workers. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. "We lost Martinez last month," Jonas tells me during a coffee break, nodding toward an empty workstation. 30 years with the company. Dylan said his salary was economically unsustainable. He shakes his head. Replaced him with 2 part-timers at half the wage. I watched those part-timers struggle with a mahogany armware that Martinez could have completed in his sleep. The wood splits along an improper cut, ruining hours of work. Dylan's efficiency model is actually costing more than it saves. That evening, I stay late to examine the books. Dylan's given me access to the financial records, probably hoping I'll be overwhelmed and sign everything back to him. Instead, I find a pattern of inflated invoices, delayed supplier payments, and contracts with companies that exist only on paper. Nothing illegal, but ethically questionable. The kind of shortcuts our father would have fired someone for taking. In the bottom drawer of what used to be my mother's desk, I find a manila folder marked SM Personal. Inside are handwritten notes in her careful script, documenting concerns about quality control, employee satisfaction, and maintaining the soul of the craft. The latest entry is dated just 2 weeks before her death. Dylan sees profit margins, Gregory sees legacy, but neither sees the people who make it all possible. If something happens to me, I pray Theo will remember what this place was meant to be. My hands shake as I read her words. She knew. She saw the slow decay beginning even before my father's death accelerated it. The 51% wasn't just an inheritance. It was a rescue mission. A memory surfaces from when I was 16, working late with my mother in this same office. She'd been reviewing payroll, and I complained about having to stay after hours. "Theo," she'd said, looking up from her calculator, "this business isn't about the Mercer name on the building. It's about the families who depend on us for their livelihoods. When you forget that, you stop being a craftsman and become just another businessman." Now, staring at her final notes, I understand what she was trying to tell me. Dylan isn't evil. He's lost. Somewhere between trying to please our father and prove his worth, he forgot that Mercer Woodworks was supposed to be about more than profit. The next morning, I make 2 phone calls. The first is to Lila Chen, my partner and business consultant in Portland. "I need you to come to Charleston," I tell her. "I think I'm about to do something that will change everything." The second call is to Evelyn Carver. "I want to exercise my rights as majority shareholder," I say. "It's time for some changes around here." The war for Mercer Woodworks is about to begin in earnest. Dylan's lawsuit arrives on a Tuesday morning, delivered by a courier who looks apologetic about the thick envelope he places in my hands. The legal papers accuse me of fraud, undue influence, and elder abuse against our deceased mother. It's a desperate move, but a public one. By noon, the Charleston Post and Courier is running a story about the bitter inheritance battle tearing apart a local business dynasty. I'm reading the article on my phone when Lila arrives at the hotel. She's exactly what I need right now. Sharp, pragmatic, and immune to Southern charm. Her black hair is pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail, and she carries herself with the confidence of someone who's helped dozens of family businesses navigate succession crises. "Well," she says, settling into the chair across from me, "you certainly know how to make an entrance. Dylan's already given 3 interviews painting you as the prodigal son who abandoned the family and returned only for money. What's our response?" "We don't respond. We execute." She opens her laptop and shows me a presentation she's prepared during the flight. "First, we shore up support with the employees. From what you've told me, most of them remember the company's better days. Second, we implement immediate changes that demonstrate your commitment to quality over quantity." That afternoon, we tour the workshop together. Lila has a gift for reading people, and within an hour she's identified the informal leaders among the craftsmen, the ones whose opinions carry weight in the break room and whose loyalty could shift the entire culture. "Martinez," she says, reviewing my notes, "the master woodworker Dylan let go, what would it take to bring him back?" "More than we can afford if we keep Dylan's overhead structure," I admit. "Then we change the structure." By Friday, word has spread that I'm making moves. I rehire Martinez at his former salary and announce profit sharing for all full-time craftsmen. I cancel the contracts with Dylan's questionable suppliers and return to the local vendors our family used for decades. The changes cost money up front, but they send a clear message. Mercer Woodworks is remembering its roots. Dylan's response is swift and vicious. He holds a press conference outside the workshop, flanked by 3 board members who still support him. "My brother abandoned this family when times got tough," he declares to the cameras. "Now he wants to waltz back in and destroy everything our father built. This isn't about business. It's about revenge." The reporters eat it up. By evening, my phone is buzzing with interview requests from local media. Some paint me as the rightful heir returning to save the family legacy. Others frame me as an opportunistic outsider exploiting legal technicalities. But the real battleground isn't in the newspapers. It's on the workshop floor. That evening, as I walk through the facility, I notice something different. The craftsmen look up when I pass, offering nods of acknowledgement. Martinez waves me over to see the armoire he's working on, explaining his technique with the enthusiasm of someone who remembers why he fell in love with woodworking. "You know," Jonas says, appearing at my elbow, "your mama would be proud. She always said this place worked best when the family remembered it was about more than just family." Through the office windows, I can see Dylan in animated conversation with someone on his phone, probably his lawyer. He catches my eye and his expression hardens. We stare at each other across the divide that's opened between us, not just brothers anymore, but adversaries fighting for the soul of something we both love. The war is just beginning, but for the first time since returning to Charleston, I feel like I'm fighting for something worth winning. The all-hands meeting is scheduled for Monday morning. I stand before 63 employees in the main workshop, the tools silent for the first time in decades during business hours. Some faces are curious, others skeptical. A few openly hostile. Dylan still has loyalists who see me as an interloper threatening their job security. "I know there are questions about the future of this company," I begin, my voice carrying across the space where I once learned to sand my first piece of pine. "I'm not here to destroy what my father built. I'm here to restore what my mother envisioned." I unveil the restoration plan Lila and I have crafted over the weekend. The PowerPoint slides project onto a white sheet hung between workbenches. But the real presentation is in my voice, in the conviction I've found after days of wrestling with doubt. First, we're ending the practice of subcontracting finish work to outside vendors. Every piece that leaves here will be completed by Mercer craftsmen. Murmurs ripple through the crowd, some approving, others worried about increased workload. Second, we're implementing a 4-day work week with the same pay. Studies show creativity and precision improve when people aren't burned out. Now I have their attention. Even the skeptics lean forward. Third, we're establishing the Susan Mercer Apprenticeship Program. Every year, we'll take on 6 new apprentices from local high schools and trade programs, paid positions with full benefits and guaranteed employment upon completion. Martinez raises his hand. "What about profit margins? Dylan always said we couldn't afford." Dylan was wrong, I interrupt, but gently. "We can't afford not to invest in quality. Our reputation built this company. Shortcuts are killing it." The presentation continues for an hour. Questions come fast. About the lawsuit, about Dylan's future, about whether I'm really committed to staying this time. I answer each one honestly, admitting uncertainty where it exists, but never wavering on the core principles. After the meeting, I walk the floor with Jonas, watching the normal rhythm of work resume. The energy feels different. Not quite optimistic, but no longer resigned. People are talking, debating, considering possibilities they'd stopped imagining. That afternoon, the first sabotage attempt occurs. Someone switches the labels on 2 different wood stains, ruining a custom dining set worth $8,000. Then the main router mysteriously develops electrical problems that will take 3 days to repair. By Thursday, our website has been hacked, displaying a message that reads, "Mercer Woodworks, new management, same family drama." I find Dylan in the parking lot that evening, leaning against his BMW with a satisfied smirk. "Enjoying the welcome back party?" he asks. "This isn't gonna work," I tell him. "Sabotaging the company hurts everyone, including you." "I built this place into what it is today," he says, his voice rising. "I worked 16-hour days while you were playing artist in Oregon. I earned every square foot of this building, every tool, every client relationship, and now you want to give it all away to a bunch of... A bunch of what, Dylan? My voice is quiet, dangerous. He stops himself, but the words hang between us unspoken. In that moment, I see not my brother but my father. The same arrogance, the same entitlement, the same inability to see the people around him as anything more than resources to be managed. "The employees aren't the enemy here," I say finally, "but if you keep treating them like they are, you're going to find out what having real enemies feels like." I walk away, leaving him standing alone in the parking lot, and for the first time since returning to Charleston, I realize that saving Mercer Woodworks might require destroying the Dylan I once knew. The Charleston Business Journal runs the story on Thursday morning, above the fold with a photograph of me from my college days, disheveled, angry, taken during my arrest at an environmental protest. The headline reads, "Mercer Heirs' Troubled Past Raises Questions About Business Leadership." The article is a masterpiece of character assassination. Anonymous sources describe my erratic behavior and history of confrontational activism. It mentions the protest arrest, my abandonment of family responsibilities, and includes speculation about my real motives for returning to Charleston. The piece is careful to stay just shy of libel, but the message is clear. I'm an unstable outsider who can't be trusted with the family legacy. By noon, 3 major clients have called to express concerns about their pending orders. The phones ring constantly with reporters seeking comment, and I watch our stock price. We went public 5 years ago to fund expansion, dropped 12% in a single day. "Dylan's playing chess while you're playing checkers," Lila warns over lunch. "He's not just attacking your reputation. He's threatening the company's financial stability to force your hand." Quote, "The worst blow comes Friday morning. Jonas doesn't show up for work, and when I call his house, his wife Martha answers with ice in her voice. 'Jonas won't be coming in,' she says, 'not after what happened yesterday.' 'What are you talking about?' 'The investigators. From the State Labor Board. They spent 3 hours going through his files, asking questions about workplace safety violations, unpaid overtime, suspicious hiring practices." Her voice cracks. 40 years with that company, and now they're treating him like a criminal. I drive to Jonas's house immediately. He's sitting on his front porch, looking older than I've ever seen him, staring at the street with hollow eyes. "They had files, Theo," he says without looking up. "Detailed reports about every safety incident, every corner I supposedly cut, every time I supposedly falsified inspection records. None of it true, but all of it documented. Dylan did this. Smart boy, your brother, knows exactly how to make someone's life miserable without leaving fingerprints. Jonas finally meets my eyes. They're recommending I take early retirement, full pension, clean record, as long as I don't contest the findings." That evening, alone in my hotel room, I open my laptop and stare at the files I've been carrying like a loaded gun for days. Dylan's financial irregularities, the inflated invoices, the phantom consulting fees paid to companies that exist only on paper. Not enough for criminal charges, but enough to destroy his reputation and end his career in Charleston business circles. It would be so easy. One phone call to the Business Journal, one anonymous tip to the same labor board investigators Dylan sicked on Jonas. I could end this war with a single strategic strike. My finger hovers over the phone. Justice feels like it's within reach, not just for me, but for Jonas, for all the employees Dylan has manipulated and threatened. But then I hear my mother's voice from those old notes. When you forget the people, you stop being a craftsman and become just another businessman. If I destroy Dylan the way he's trying to destroy me, what does that make me? And what kind of company would I be left to lead? I close the laptop and put the phone aside. There has to be another way, one that doesn't require me to become the kind of man I spent 12 years trying not to be. But first, I need to save Jonas's reputation and show Dylan that some lines shouldn't be crossed. The emergency board meeting is called for Monday morning. I arrive to find Dylan already seated at the head of the conference table, flanked by his remaining allies, 3 board members who still believe he represents stability and tradition. The other 4 members sit with carefully neutral expressions, waiting to see which way the wind blows. "We need to address the elephant in the room," Dylan begins, his voice steady but his hands trembling slightly. "The company's reputation is under attack, our stock price is falling, and key employees are being driven away by investigations and uncertainty." He presents a PowerPoint that could have been titled, "Why Theo is Destroying Everything." Financial projections showing my restoration plan's costs, newspaper clippings highlighting the controversy, and employee testimonials about feeling, quote, caught in the middle of a family feud. "I propose we buy out Theodore's shares at fair market value," Dylan concludes, $22 million. He walks away wealthy, and we restore stability to this company. The room falls silent. $22 million. Enough to start my own workshop, to never worry about money again, to walk away from this battlefield forever. I see Evelyn watching me carefully, her pen poised over legal papers that could end this war with a signature. Instead, I stand and walk to the whiteboard at the front of the room. "Let me tell you about Jonas Whitman," I say, picking up a marker. 40 years with this company. Never missed a deadline, never compromised on quality, never failed a safety inspection until last week. I write his name on the board, then turn to face Dylan. "The Labor Board investigation?" It was based on anonymous tips that contained detailed knowledge of internal company operations. Tips that could only have come from someone with access to personnel files. Dylan's face doesn't change, but I see the slight tightening around his eyes. "I have evidence of financial irregularities during your management," I continue, placing a manila folder on the table. "Inflated invoices, phantom consulting fees, vendor kickbacks. Nothing criminal, but enough to show a pattern of prioritizing profit over principles." "You're bluffing," Dylan says, but his voice lacks conviction. "I'm offering you the same deal you offered me. Walk away with a generous severance package, and I'll ensure these irregularities never become public." The board members shift uncomfortably. This isn't how these meetings usually go. Family laundry aired in corporate boardrooms, threats and counter-threats replacing quarterly reports. Dylan stands abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You think you can threaten me? In my own company?" "It's not your company," I say quietly. "It never was." What happens next unfolds in slow motion. Dylan lunges across the table, his hands reaching for my shirt collar. We collide against the whiteboard, markers scattering across the floor. His face is inches from mine, contorted with years of suppressed rage. "You ungrateful bastard," he hisses. "I kept this place running while you were playing games in Oregon. I earned this." "Dylan, stop." Evelyn's voice cuts through the chaos. Security guards appear. When did someone call them? And gently separate us. Dylan straightens his tie with shaking hands, his professional mask cracking completely. "Sign the papers," I tell him, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Take the severance and start fresh somewhere else. This doesn't have to end with your reputation destroyed." He looks around the room at faces that no longer show support, only embarrassment and concern. The spell is broken. Whatever authority he commanded through birthright and bluster has evaporated in those few seconds of violence. "Fine," he whispers, "but this isn't over between us." "Yes, it is," I say sadly. "It's been over for a long time." He signs the papers with jerky, angry movements, then walks out of the conference room without looking back. Through the window, I watch him cross the parking lot to his BMW, a man diminished by his own choices. The battle for Mercer Woodworks is over. Now comes the harder part, healing what the war has broken. 6 months later, the transformation is impossible to ignore. The workshop hums with a different energy, purposeful rather than desperate, creative rather than mechanical. Martinez stands at the center of it all, training 2 apprentices in the art of hand-joining, his weathered hands guiding theirs with infinite patience. "See how the grain wants to flow?" he tells them, running his fingers along a piece of cherry wood. "Work with it, not against it. The wood will tell you what it wants to become." I watch from the office that used to be my father's, the space now lighter somehow. Lila has convinced me to replace the heavy mahogany furniture with pieces our own craftsmen made. Clean lines, honest materials, nothing meant to intimidate. The wall that once displayed Gregory Mercer's awards and accolades now showcases photographs of our work. A dining room set in a restored Charleston single house, a boardroom table for a local nonprofit, custom cabinets for a young family's first home. The Susan Mercer Apprenticeship Program graduated its first class last month. 6 young people, 4 of them from underserved communities, now have full-time positions and health benefits. The ceremony was small, just the apprentices, their families, and the craftsmen who mentored them. Jonas delivered the keynote address, his reputation not just restored, but enhanced by his role as master instructor. "Your mama would have loved this," he told me afterward, watching the graduates pose for pictures with their families. "She always said the real legacy of this place wasn't in the furniture we built, but in the lives we shaped." The financial numbers tell their own story. Revenue dropped initially as we transitioned away from Dylan's cost-cutting model, but quality referrals have more than compensated. Our custom furniture now commands premium prices, and the waiting list stretches 8 months. More importantly, employee satisfaction surveys show the highest scores in company history. I find myself staying late most evenings, not from obligation but from genuine love of the work. Tonight, I'm hand-sanding a rocking chair I'm crafting for Martinez's new granddaughter, my first personal project in years. The rhythmic motion is meditative, connecting me to generations of craftsmen who found meaning in the marriage of vision and skill. Lila appears in the doorway, 2 cups of coffee in her hands. She's stayed in Charleston longer than either of us expected, consulting on other family business transitions, but also, I think, because she's grown attached to what we're building here. "How's it coming?" she asks, settling into the chair beside my workbench. "Slow," I admit, examining the curve of the rocker, "but that's how it should be. Some things can't be rushed." She nods, understanding that I'm talking about more than woodworking. The healing process, for the company, for the employees, for myself, requires the same patience as creating something meant to last. "Any word from Dylan?" she asks carefully. I shake my head. He moved to Atlanta 3 months ago, started a consulting firm specializing in business efficiency. The irony isn't lost on me. We exchange information through lawyers when necessary, but the personal connection is severed completely. "Do you miss him?" Lila asks. "I miss who he could have been," I say finally, "but not who he chose to become." Through the workshop windows, I can see the lights of Charleston twinkling in the distance. This city raised me, drove me away, and called me back. Now it feels like home again, not because nothing has changed, but because everything has. I find the letter on a quiet Sunday evening, tucked behind a hidden drawer in my mother's old desk, the same desk where I discovered her business notes months ago. The envelope is cream-colored, heavy stock, with my name written in her careful script. Inside, the letter is dated just 1 week before her death. "My dearest Theo, if you're reading this, then the plan worked, and you've found your way home. I pray it wasn't too difficult, and that you can forgive an old woman for keeping secrets. Your father was a good man in many ways, but he never understood that strength isn't about control. It's about knowing when to let go. He saw Dylan's hunger for approval as leadership potential, but I saw a boy who would sacrifice anything to earn love he already had. And I saw you, my quiet son, who walked away from power because you understood its cost. The 51% was never about money, sweetheart. It was about ensuring that when you were ready, truly ready, you would have the tools to rebuild rather than just inherit. I knew you would leave. I also knew you would return, because that's who you are. You fix broken things, even when it costs you. Dylan will fight you. Your father's ghost will whisper that you're not worthy. The business world will question your every decision. But remember this, leadership isn't about being the smartest person in the room or the most ruthless negotiator. It's about serving something larger than yourself. I've watched you work with wood since you were small. You always listened to what each piece wanted to become, never forcing it into shapes that would break it. Do the same with this company. Listen to what it wants to be. Be kind to your brother if you can. His anger comes from fear, and his fear comes from love, twisted though it may be. Some relationships can't be saved, but forgiveness can still set you free. Build something beautiful, my son. Not just furniture, but lives. Not just a business, but a legacy worth the name. All my love, Mama." My hands shake as I fold the letter. Outside, Charleston sleeps under a canopy of stars. The city quiet, except for the distant sound of wind, chimes on someone's porch. I sit in the workshop that has become my sanctuary, surrounded by the tools and workbenches that 3 generations of Mercers have used to create something lasting from raw materials. I walk to the main support beam, a massive piece of heart pine that's held this building together for 30 years. Taking up a chisel, I begin to carve, slowly, carefully, the way my mother taught me to approach everything important. First, her initials, SM, elegant and flowing. Then mine, TM, strong and simple. Below those, the initials of everyone who helped rebuild this place, JW for Jonas, who never lost faith. LC for Lila, who showed me how to lead. MR for Martinez, who proved craftsmanship could endure. The wood accepts each letter willingly, grain and blade working together to create something permanent. When I finish, I step back to admire the small constellation of initials, a family tree of choice rather than blood, bound together by shared purpose rather than shared DNA. Tomorrow, the first class of the expanded apprenticeship program begins. Next month, we're opening a second location in North Charleston, bringing jobs to a community that needs them. The waiting list for our custom pieces stretches into next year, and 3 competitors have tried to poach our craftsmen, failing because we've built something money can't buy. Loyalty earned through respect. I pick up the rocking chair I've been crafting for Martinez's granddaughter, running my fingers along the smooth runners. In 6 months, when she's old enough to sit in it safely, this chair will hold her while her grandmother tells stories, while her mother sings lullabies, while generations of love unfold in its gentle motion. That's what we build here now. Not just furniture, but the spaces where families create their memories. My mother would be proud. And for the first time since returning to Charleston, that's enough. Up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch, and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.